Hi, my name is Rajat Jain and I'm a senior tech consultant at EY in the insurance practice. I'm taking a course, Application of Influencing Principles in an Organization Context at Hult Business School. Today, I'm doing this video for my assignment. Note, the names are not real due to the confidentiality and situation below are based on the true events. So, by taking this course, I have developed a better understanding of how influence works in professional settings. I have become more intentional about the way I communicate, present evidence, and encourage others to support a recommendation or take action. I have also noticed changes in my own behavior, particularly in how I prepare for conversations, consider the other person's priorities, and make my requests clearer and easier to act on. The following three examples show how I applied these influencing principles in real organizational situation and reflected on the results using the CAR model. Influencing stakeholders is an important part of my role as a technology consultant in the insurance sector. My work requires me to collaborate with clients, leaders, stakeholders, business users, tech teams, project managers, and senior EY stakeholders. In many situations, I may not have formal authority over the people involved, but I still need to build support for recommendations, obtain decisions, resolve conflicts, and encourage action. For this assignment, I focus primarily on the principle of reasoning. I use this principle in two professional situations because evidence based communication is highly relevant to my consulting role. My minor focus was the principle of effort, which I applied when seeking a timely decision from EY senior leader. All three examples occur uh, on the days after 1 p.m. on Saturday, July 11, 2026, where the lectures were completed and I got an opportunity to apply these things to my real work. So, in my own words, the principle of reasoning means providing a clear and relevant explanation for why another person should support a recommendation or take a particular action. Effective reasoning is not simply presenting a large amount of data. The evidence must be credible, easy to understand, and connected to an outcome that matters to the person being influenced. In consulting, stakeholders may evaluate the same recommendation differently. A technology leader may focus on architecture and system stability, while a business person may prioritize customer impact, compliance, cost, and implementation speed. Therefore, uh, reasoning is more effective when the evidence is framed around the other person's priorities. So I'll take first example like influencing a client stakeholder to approve a phased implementation. So uh, on Monday, July 13th, during my regular call, I participated in a Teams meeting concerning the modernization of uh, commercial insurance policy administration system. The meeting included members of client business technology teams. The person I attempted to influence was Priya Mehta, the client director for policy operations. The project involved replacing a legacy policy servicing process with a new digital workflow. The client was considering whether to release all capabilities at the same time or divide the implementation into two phases. Priya preferred a single large release because she believed it would allow the organization to realize the benefits sooner and avoid maintaining temporary processes between releases. My objective was to gain her approval for a phase implementation. Under my proposed approach, the first phase would include new business submissions and underwriting referrals. Policy amendments, renewals, cancellation, other workflows would be included in the subsequent phases. The principle applied was reasoning here. I defined reasoning as using relevant evidence and a meaningful explanation to show why a proposed action supports the recipient's goal. So the action, what I did was like before the meeting, I reviewed the available project information with the solution architect and testing leads. Uh, we examined few things. The first was the proposed release contained 14 integrations with legacy and third-party systems. Second, five of the integration had not completed end-to-end testing. Third, the data migration team had identified uh, around 8,000 policies record requiring additional validation. Four, the cancellation workflow will still contain two unresolved business rules decision. Finally, a previous release involving only six integrations had required 3 days of production stabilization. I organized the information into a one-page comparison between a single release and a phased implementation. The the comparison covered implementation speed, testing complexity, customer impact, rollback capabilities, and operational risk. So during the meeting, I did not begin by telling Priya that her preferred approach was too risky. Instead, I acknowledged her objective. I said, I understand that your priority is to deliver the full business benefit quickly and avoid creating long transition period for the operational team. Then I connected my evidence to that priority. I explained. Uh, the reason I recommend a phased implementation is that it gives us a higher probability of achieving the business outcome without a major disruption. Five integrations have not yet completed end-to-end testing, and two cancellation rules remain unresolved. Releasing the most stable workflow first allows us to validate the platform in production while protecting policy servicing operations. I showed that the phased approach would initially affect approx 20% of the operational workflow, while a failed single release could disrupt all major policy servicing activities. I also acknowledge that the disadvantage of my recommendation, a phased approach, would require the operation team to maintain one temporary manual process for approximately 6 weeks. I explained that the project team would provide a documented interim procedure and additional production support during this period. Finally, I just made one clear request that based on the integration status and operational exposure, I recommend approving phase one for new business underwriting of workflows, followed by phase two, where the 4 weeks of stable production performance. Would you be comfortable approving that approach today? Result, Priya initially asked whether the second phase would delay overall project beyond the end of the quarter. I explained that second phase could really within the quarter if the team finalizing the outstanding cancellation rules uh by July 24 or towards the end of that week and begin parallel testing while phase one was being prepared for deployment. After reviewing the implementation comparison, Priya approved the phased approach on the condition that the team provide a weekly readiness report and clearly define the criteria for proceeding to phase two. The outcome was like the project steering group approved the revised deployment plan. The team scheduled phase one for uh, August and phase two for September. Priya said that the evidence helped her understand the challenges, and the phased approach was not simply a preference from the technology team. It was a way to, reduce the possibility of a major operational interruption while still completing the implementation within the portal. This attempt demonstrates effective use of reasoning because I connected technical evidence to outcomes Priya valued: business continuity, predictable, predictable delivery, and completion within the core. So do better. Like the instruction was successful, but I could improve my approach in different ways. First, I could have spoken Priya before the training meeting to better understand why She preferred the single release. During the discussion, I learned that her concern was not only the speed, she was also worried about the maintaining temporary processes would create confusion for the operating team. If I had identified these concerns earlier, I could have included the interim operating procedures in my recommendation, which I haven't done. Uh, Second, I use several technical terms, including end-to-end integration testing, rollback capabilities, uh, stabilization. Although Priya understood the terminology, I could have still communicated the business consequences more directly. Uh, Third, like I could have invited Priya to define the approval criteria with me. This could have created greater ownership of the phase approach. In future, I would ask like, what evidence would give you confidence that phased releases is a better option? This would make the discussion more collaborative and reduce the impression that I had already decided on the answers. Okay, I'll now move on to my second example. So, influencing an EY colleague to complete an additional quality review. So, on July 14th, after the classes, I spoke with the one of my colleague, Daniel, uh, an EY QA lead during the project working session. So Daniel's responsible was responsible for preparing requirement documents for claims, intake, and tried solutions. The document was scheduled to be shared with the client following morning. Daniel believed the document was ready for business because it has already been reviewed by business analyst and her and his team. However, while conducting a spot check, I noticed that several requirements did not clearly distinguish between personal auto claims and commercial auto claims. My objective was to influence Daniel to delay the client submission by a couple of hours and complete an additional review with the team and the domain leads. The principle applied was I applied was reasoning. In this situation, I needed to explain why the additional review was required without suggesting Daniel that work was poor or it's creating unnecessary process. So before discussing the issue with Daniel, I identified three examples from the document. Uh, First was FNO workflow use the same mandatory fields for personal and commercial lines. Document did not explain how fleet vehicle claims should be routed. The acceptance criteria did not address claims involving multiple insured vehicles. I also reviewed comments from an earlier client workshops. The client's uh, claims SME had specifically stated that commercial automobile claims require a separate triage path because of the fleet structures and different escalation requirements. I began my discussion by acknowledging Daniel's work. I said, the document is well structured, Daniel, and you have incorporated most of the comments from the business analysis review. I think the updated workflow diagram will help the client follow the process and then explain the reason for requesting another review. I recommended one focused domain review before we send it. The client previously emphasized the commercial automobile claims requires a different triage path, but the three sections currently treat personal and commercial lines same. I showed Daniel the three affected sections, then corresponding notes from the client workshops. Uh, then I proposed a limited action plan, like review only the three sections, ask your team member Melissa, who is a domain leader, to confirm on the commercial line rules. Uh, I asked like limit the review just to 45 to 50 minutes, update only the requirements that could materially affect workflow design or system configuration. I also offered to prepare the questions for Melissa and join the review. Result, Daniel agreed to the focus review at the call at 4 p.m. We met with the Melissa, reviewed the section, and she confirmed that the commercial auto claims requires a separate routing when more than five insured vehicles were involved. She also identified a missing escalation rule for claims involving hazardous material transportation. Daniel updated those requirements, and during the client review, the claims director approved the overall workflow and specifically commented that the distinction between personal and commercial claim was clear. Client just requested two major wording updates and did not require another formal review. So this was an effective application of reasoning where I use specific evidence, explain the likely consequences of not acting, and connected the request to an outcome uh, that Daniel valued. So what I could do better here is, although the outcome was positive, uh, I could improve my uh, influence attempt here. Firstly, I could have involved Daniel in identifying the issue rather than immediately presenting my conclusion. Uh, this may have allowed Daniel to recognize the gap himself, increase his ownership of the solution. Secondly, I could have been more concise. I initially explained all three in detail before asking the additional review. The strongest evidence was the client's earlier statement that commercial claims require a separate triage process. Leading with that point would have made my reasoning more clearer. So in future, I would use this learning to improve the team's process rather than relying on the last minute influencing attempt. Now, I'll move on to my minor principle, which is effort. So, in my own words, effort principle means like people are more likely to complete an action when the time, thought, complexity, and uh, inconvenience associated with that action are reduced. A person may agree that a request is important, but still delay acting because required next step is difficult or unclear. Applying the principle of efforts, therefore, involves making the request state action simple, specific, and easy to complete. Uh, so I'll take my third example. So influencing an EY uh, senior manager director to approve a project recommendation. So on July 21, uh, I needed to a decision from uh, Michael, who's EY senior manager or director responsible for insurance transformation engagement. The project team had identified the need of an additional test environment to support parallel system integration and user acceptance testing. Uh, Without the additional environment, the two testing teams would need to share access, which would extend the schedule by approx 2 to 3 weeks. Michael have not reviewed the environment assessment assessment because he was managing several client priorities. The project team needed a decision by the end of the day, and Friday, uh, so the infra request could be included in the client's uh, governance meeting. I mean, today morning. My objective was to gain Michael's approval and recommend the additional test environment to the client. So I applied the principle of effort. So my original plan was to send Michael the complete 18-page assessment and ask him to review it. However, I recognize that uh, uh, this creates a high effort request because required decision was not immediately clear. So I created one pages decision uh, document, summary document containing decision required, deadline, recommended option, cost, impact, risk, alternate options, and references to support in the full assessment. Uh, so there were three options. First, continue with the shared test environment. Second, add temporary second test environment for 12 weeks, which could increase the cost. Third, reduce the testing scope that could increase the risk of production errors. I highlight option two uh, as a team's project team's recommendation, but I included the main disadvantage. The additional cost requires client approval. I sent Michael one page summary with the following message like, Michael, we need your direction on the test environment recommendation uh, uh, before the morning's governance preparation. The decision was trade-offs are summarized in one page. Please reply with option A, B, C, or discuss. I would recommend option B based on my understanding because it reflects the testing schedule without reducing coverage. The complete assessment is attached for your supporting details. I placed a call 15 minutes on his calendar today morning, but stated that I would cancel if you think the email is good or texting is good. This reduced, effort of requiring in three ways. Michael, you don't need to search whole document, read the whole document. Alternative trade-offs were presented in a formatted way. The response processes was simple and specific. Result of that is Michael reviewed the summary uh, and responded that go with option two, but add a clear explanation of 3 week schedule impact avoiding and confirm whether the environment can be decommissioned after the testing. I obtained this decommission confirmation from the infra team and following that added it to the governance presentation. As a result, the recommendation was included in the today's client governance meeting in the morning. The client approved and temporary environment subject to the monthly cost tracking. Testing team were able to continue pilot testing and project did not need to reduce its planned. So this influence attempt was effective because I reduced the mental and procedural effect required to make the decision while preserving access to the complete supporting evidence. What I could do better is I could improve this in several ways. Firstly, I should have confirmed Michael's preferred decision making format earlier in the project. Some leaders prefer written comparisons, some like calls. Knowing the preference could allow me structure the future requests more effectively. Uh, Second, although three options are uh, made the response easier, I must be carefully not do oversimplified decisions involving significant commercial, regulatory, and operational consequences. So in future, I will consider the likely follow-up questions before sending a decision request. This would reduce effort further and improve the quality of the recommendation. So overall, the three practice situations help me recognize that having a technical correct recommendation is not enough. I also need to understand how other person evaluates the situation and what may prevent them from supporting or acting on the recommendation. Uh, so these practices will help me influence stakeholders more ethically and effectively while supporting stronger project outcomes. Thank you.